Look, everyone's trying to get out of the theater and we're the only two schmucks trying to get in.
Look at us. We look like a couple of schlemiels.
So, it's been 20 years since Independence Day came out.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we got that speech from Bill Pullman. Since Jeff Goldblum showed us how to hack an alien spacecraft or an alien mothership with an Apple computer.
And we still didn't get that fat lady to sing.
No. Yeah, we did, I guess. In the end, we got her to sing eventually.
Little bit.
Well, that's when Jeff Goldblum's walking like he's got the seatbelt up his ass.
Oh, yeah.
And the fat lady. Yeah. But the characters are what made it really stand out for us back in the 90s.
Yes.
Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman. Yeah, there was a big issue, a disconnect, if you will, with the characters.
Yes.
And the movie, and the pacing, and the music, and pretty much everything else that the movie was trying to convey.
The characters, not Chris Hemsworth, not Mae Whitman, not Will Smith, like the younger characters, I just didn't have any connection with them. I didn't care at all for them. Like, anything that happened to them, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. There were scenes that were playing out in this movie, especially in the first, 10 minutes, where they're like, just, here you go, it's Liam Hemsworth, not Chris Hemsworth. I mean, here he is. Oh, and here's not his brother, literally. And they're just on this adventure that just makes no sense, building this defense mechanism that all of a sudden falls for no reason.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. It's like, oh, are they coming? No,
that would have made more sense if the ship was coming and it knocked it over and oh my gosh, here they are, even though we should have put up sensors to figure that out.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't make any sense that it just falls over and it's like, oh, here is an adventure scene for you where we're going to show you his potential and how daring he is and how he goes against the
grind.
Absolutely.
But I feel like they could have done that way better, like at the part after the fact. When he goes and he's like, everyone out, I'm taking this ship, and he takes the ship without any authorization.
Absolutely, he's a renegade, but it's not Chris Hemsworth, so not much of a renegade to us. Where the story should have focused on, and did it very poorly, was not Mae Whitman and not Will Smith.
Yes.
The kids of Independence Day, which actually we would have, as fans, would have been absolutely okay with, if done correctly, which it absolutely was not done correctly.
Right.
Because not Chris Hemsworth was there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had no, I don't understand why he was in the movie. Like, it should have been Mae Whitman, not Mae Whitman or whoever.
It should have been Mae Whitman.
It should have been Mae Whitman, and then the other kid, that Will Smith. I mean, I guess the actor is fine who played the son.
He wasn't fine, though. He was very wooden, very stiff. Like, they should have gotten someone else,
They should have gotten, what's his name from Fantastic Four?
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Creed.
He's a little busy right now.
Yeah.
He's a little busy. But, yeah, they should have gotten talent, essentially, and they should have done their damnedest to get Will Smith. They should have gotten all the legendary characters, which they made a half-hearted attempt at doing, but didn't know what to do with them in the movie.
You can definitely tell, the persona between the movie and everything with not having Will Smith. I know Will Smith brings this, charisma and characteristics to every, movie that he does. And, it resonates with me. I don't know if it resonates with you or with you.
It did with all of us at that time. A lot of that has been lost with Will Smith. But he's going to get some of that back with Suicide Squad.
But we can talk about that later.
Absolutely. But Will Smith did bring a charismatic energy to it, and just the dialogue between him and a lot of the other characters, except for when it came to the authoritative members like the president. He was Mr. Soldier with them, but he was very relaxed and, the fat lady.
Ready to get down to business, but...
Which the banter is what also made Independence Day such a fun movie originally, because, you got these guys in the cockpits going back and forth, the banter back and forth. Even David Levinson and Stephen Hiller are in the cockpit together in the movie for only 5 minutes total.
But that's the main thing that you remember is them two together going up there and destroying them, basically.
But they were never in the movie at all. They were living this completely different movie.
Right, and then they come back together, and I think that's what this movie failed at too is that didn't utilize the legacy or legendary characters very well at all.
Absolutely not. And the only one that even came close was Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman definitely pulled it out, and then they just dropped the ball with him in the very end. But David Levinson, that whole I'm going to save the earth, I recycle and all that, like, he had a character.
Yes.
And he was a very intelligent guy, and he saved the world. And he could save the world again.
He wanted to save the world. He wanted this thing, and they just didn't. He was driving a bus the half of the ending of it. A freaking bus.
Yeah, the whole third act for David Levinson is with his dad randomly. Judd Hirsch, who should have went out in his own glory.
Awesome glory
absolutely.
Way, yeah.
He should have not have made it through. And then, of course, Vivica A. Fox just absolutely didn't make it through. But David Levinson, he is the primary character. And I understand you want to do a Star Wars and bring your fresh meat in and have them go with it. But this isn't the movie you do it to. You use Jeff Goldblum, and Jeff Goldblum drove a bus with Judd Hirsch, just with a bunch of kids going around and the things falling on. I mean, come on, it was ridiculous. It was pointless.
I did like Dr. Oaken. I did like that he had more like pizzazz in this one, because the other one he did have that same kind of thing, but it was more David Levinson. Like, he was like, what code? You know, like he cracked the code for them, and then he did all of this like with the virus and everything, and then in this one it's
his boyfriend. That's how I came across it. It almost felt like it was his boyfriend. I mean, he knitted a scarf for him, he took care of him every single day, and then he was just sobbing when he ends up going out. But that doctor, I was so happy that they brought him back. Don't know his name, but it was cool to see familiarity when it came to the movie, because I needed a connection with Independence Day, and the only way I could get it was through these legendary characters, and the only ones that were basically their characters, or at least felt the same, was Dr. Oaken and Area 51 with that other doctor. And then when Levinson came in and Bill Pullman's there, that was my favorite part of the whole movie.
Right, when they go to Area 51, it was like, great, they're going down to business, they're going to figure out everything that's going to happen and all this stuff. And that's kind of another thing too, was the pacing of this movie. It was just awful. Like, all of a sudden there's this weird sphere there, and you're just like, what the hell is that? They shoot it down, okay, and then all of a sudden the other thing is there, and it's like
the other ship just shows up, and it's
the
down
mothership,
with brass tacks, like it's over.
Mothership comes down. It doesn't even like hover over the earth. And I get it, they're probably pissed, so they want to do it. She wants to do it herself this time, so that's probably why she wanted to go down there. But it just felt very, very rushed and not very paced at all.
Well, the biggest thing about the first Independence Day, one of the iconic things that I can remember just watching it, was just when each day came to a close and we started a new day, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 4th. It set up segments in the movie that we felt internally, emotionally together. Sold out show, line out the door, sold out like for the whole weekend. It was the big summer box office blockbuster. And the thing is, with that first Independence Day, we were all in it together. We felt it. We were hanging on every word, every emotion that was playing out. And as soon as the day came to a close, and after everything got destroyed and blown up in that first, it became July 3rd, and it just changed how the movie progressed again. We were in the middle. Now it's time to get everything geared up to fight back.
Right. Like in this, I mean, in Resurgence, it kind of was like, here's the ship. All right, guys, go after the ship. And it's like, don't you guys remember from the last time?
Like right
and
in the
it felt
beginning.
like they don't. Yeah, it felt like they don't even remember fighting them before. And it's like, guys, I understand that you have like a time limit because they're going through the core so fast, but
it was immediately just.
Yeah, and then
it's just there. It's just there. It didn't feel like this ultimate accumulation of events that bring everyone together. It's just like, oh, by the way, oh, there's David. That's my son. That's my dad. Like, it's just sloppily put together.
It felt like other movies too. It did not feel like Independence Day at all. I remember watching it the whole time. I was like, that kind of reminds me of 2012. And there was other parts I was like, you know what? That reminds me of Day After Tomorrow. So it didn't really have that Independence Day feel like it should have. It had like these other parts of the movie, like the part when all the guys were in the submarine or the boat and they were tracking the thing. They're like, oh no, sorry, we don't have 7 days, or 7 hours, it's an hour. And it's like the same thing in A Day After Tomorrow when he's like, oh, this isn't from a week ago, it's a couple days.
Yeah, so. It's plot devices that they have used. It just felt like MacGuffins all over throughout this movie, and it's just, there's nothing organic or natural in the storytelling of this movie. The big thing that threw off too is, like you said, it didn't feel like Independence Day. The graphics, I mean, one big thing about Independence Day, we've said it before, synergy between practical effects and computer generated imagery.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching Independence Day and we were just saying, okay, well, that we know that is a CG, but it still looks like very real and very like
natural,
natural, and how they used models to blow up the White House, the tower in LA, and then the Empire State Building. And it's like, here they used a lot of CG and
overlaid it, and you had hundreds of extras running around, cars lifting up and flying through the air. And I know in this one you have people lifting up and cars lifting up, but
like whole buildings and whole cities, because
Transformers and Apocalypse. I mean, it feels artificial, and that's one thing, is that when they had the heart for it, man, I remember watching featurettes and they're going through and we're lifting up cars and we're dropping the cars, and that's something that Michael Bay still does. You know, he'll still throw cars at people and it helps, but the problem is when the CG is going on, you can't really tell what is happening. You can't follow it. You
lose sight of the actual movie, and you're kind of just like, oh, well, that's CG, you know? It's just kind of...
And the puppeteering, too. I mean, when the aliens actually came out of the exosuits, or the exosuits themselves, I mean, I could pick out only a handful of times in the original where it was full CG. Like when the alien wakes up in the chamber in Area 51 and goes after, and it's all, boom, like jumps from the roof down and
like
then
skids over.
Yeah, it's CG when he like drops, but the rest of it is like just animatronic, and the thing comes out and it's looking around and it's a puppet. Like that, to me, just feels like you put heart into it instead of just throwing money at the computer generated. And then every scene where it showed massive amounts of people, it was like Jurassic World, where it's just like, you know, an auditorium.
And then it felt like a video game.
Absolutely. The Independence Day video game is what I kept picking up when they would show the ships flying around and crashing.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that I think Star Wars does really well, and I think the first Independence Day did it well, is that when they're in the cockpit banter, the camera forward and then the cameras on the side, and then switching between them, and then using the camera to convey movement. Like, that's one big thing that Independence Day does. That's one thing that Star Wars does a great job with. I wasn't a fan of what they did with The Force Awakens, because they changed the angles of the cameras, but that's a big part of what I loved about it. I mean, especially in the final fight, you know, with Russell Case and, you know, President Whitmore.
Right. And that I just didn't have that feeling, like, even with that banter between, like, they did have banter in this one when they're in the but it just didn't...
Nothing clever about it.
Yeah, it just didn't resonate with me. And then one thing about when they go into the ship, I was like, okay, that's cool. They're going to go into another mothership and then see, like, oh, they have this ecosystem. We're going to know more about this. Yeah, when the pilots get stuck into the ship. And it was just kind of like, oh, and then they fall and all these... I didn't care. I was like, whatever, they could die in there.
And that's what I always wanted to see. I wanted to see the ground troops. I wanted to see the invasion. I wanted to see the ecosystem. We're in the ship and we got a ground crew that's accidentally in there. They got to fight their way out. But as soon as like the ship's going, they're falling down, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. It's tugging at me. But then I remembered who was in the ships and who's going to be the ground crew and who's going to carry us for the rest of this movie down there. And I was like, I don't want it. I don't want them. I don't want them. I want somebody else. I need just more when it comes to that. These guys were not doing it. And then Liam Hemsworth, not Chris Hemsworth, go in and just like, oh, I should have kept running, and just
when he like flipping them off, I was just like, no,
it's awful. Like, I don't like it at all.
When he was doing that, I was like, nah, they did it way better in the original one, where they're in the cockpit of the thing and they're just like, hey, look at us humanoids, like, we're gonna kill you right now.
I was hoping for just better, and it felt kind of like Halo and the Covenant with their shields and their guns, and it looked that way. The imagery, the graphics just looked very video game like, which I just couldn't.
Like even when Vivica Fox, when she fell, when she fell, it was just like.
And the building falls apart.
Yeah, I kind of laughed at that part because I was like, and that part reminded me of Day After Tomorrow too.
Day After Tomorrow, it reminded me of 2012 when the big guy throws the red little Russian kid up and he catches him. He's
and he
like
falls.
It's just not. There's no heart.
Yeah.
There's no heart. And one of the biggest things that gave me so much heart in the original movie was the score. David Arnold's score.
It was very like patriotic and very like we're gonna go kick some alien ass, and
it conveyed joining forces and just resisting, and that's one thing that I think John Williams did not do right out of the gate with me with the Resistance music, and all of them going for it. Like they did amazingly with that in Independence Day.
Yes, the original.
It felt like,
and then
it was bringing us forward.
Right, and then the music for this one felt very generic, like very like action-packed generic
cut and paste
music. It didn't have that same feel, like even with the music for the aliens. Like the music for the aliens in the original one was like this, like doo doo doo, and then they didn't really have. They had like the same kind of music for everything, even with the aliens coming and fighting them, and it was just like
very Brian Tyler.
I'm a huge soundtrack person for movies. Every time a new movie's coming out that I want to see, I'm like, okay, who's doing the soundtrack? Because the soundtrack is a huge part of a movie, and it brings it together. I know there's a lot of movies that not necessarily are kind of very good movies, but I still enjoyed it because the soundtrack is amazing. And one of those movies is Tron Legacy, and the soundtrack is amazing. The movie not so much, but the music, it was just
fabric.
And then the same thing with Independence Day, the original. You know, it was just like very powerful, and it just
interweaving. It was brilliantly placed, especially certain scenes. That final fight, I always compare that final fight to like Star Wars, essentially. Yeah. I mean, there's a ticking clock. You've got the Death Star about to blow up. Yavin 4. I even say, like, as soon as the president and his two come in and they're going for it, I was like, there's their trench run. Like, here it comes. They're going for it, and it's like, boom. Later, Biggs. Boom. Wedge got to go, and then you've got nobody left, and yahoo! Here comes, Harrison Ford to save the day, and it's Russell Case. And he comes in to save the day, and that music, and he comes in and saves the day with the ultimate sacrifice, which is a huge just eruption of emotion in the theater when we originally saw it. That sold out crowd, everyone was cheering. Hello boys, I'm back. Yeah, it's powerful. It's very powerful.
From our generation, up yours.
And the music, the interweaving when they go to the aliens winning, it's the and switches over to the alien music and back and forth.
Right, that's
what Star Wars does.
That's another reason why I love the original, because it is kind of like the Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. Like when it cuts very well. It cuts to Endor when they're doing their stuff there. It cuts to the fight when they're doing it at the Death Star. It cuts to Luke and Vader and stuff in there, and it was very much the pace in the original where they have the fight, and then they have David Levison and Will Smith's character up and fighting with them, and then you have the people
Jane on the ground crew trying to get everybody
getting everybody back in, and then you have them on the radio like talking to them.
Jiminy Cricket from Once Upon a Time on the radio. Raphael, absolutely. You're right. It's these different puzzles that are just very well connected, and that's why it was such a popular movie at the time, because it was well done. But they let that go. They had a Godzilla moment during this movie. I'm watching it, and with the Queen, and when Whitmore sacrifices, unnecessarily sacrifices in vain.
It just
to destroy the queen.
Yeah, that's at that point I was like, oh, I'm done with this. I got so pissed. I was just like, why did you kill him? Why did he died for nothing? She was able to come back, and then she was able to grab her hands on the spear that was there, and that's another reason why this movie was kind of like the whole just. It didn't feel realistic, and it didn't feel like from the heart. It kind of felt like just a generic, action-packed movie.
You wasted Whitmore for no reason. And what does he say? Enjoy the fireworks. And then he, like, blows it up. Oh, come on. I mean, it didn't even kill her. Like, it was like Godzilla, you know? Godzilla, oh, he's dead. Oh, then the babies, we blew up Madison Square Garden, and then here comes Godzilla again. And it's that moment of, oh, good, we completed it. Oh, here we go again. Oh, no, we completed it. Oh, here we go again. And that's
the way that she, like, came out and everything, it just made me laugh, too. Because she kind of just looked like a giant praying mantis.
Yeah, it just... And then the bus is driving around and they're trying to dodge it.
Yeah, and then they have to back up because they're too close. And it's just like...
And then that nerdy guy with the glasses and the African warlord.
God. The knot... it's just... Yeah. Like, every time he said something, I was like, shut up. I don't care what you have to say.
The African warlord, I totally see could be like carrying on into the franchise had they done it right. But he's like, I'm gonna get you avenged, and then like
it was cool, and he had like his machetes and everything. He like slides under the monster and like gets him from behind. He's like, I told you this is how you kill them, and you get him from behind.
And that's like in the beginning, and then it's like,
and then he uses the guns and everything, and then when they go back, because the aliens are going after the sphere, I was like, all right, we're gonna see him like freaking go like machete a bunch of these aliens just to go and protect the sphere again.
The sphere, I mean, it was totally a page out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, it kind of looked like
Titan AE, we're gonna save you, we're gonna go to another planet because the Earth's gonna get destroyed. Like, it was just where, why, who, what, huh? I just didn't understand what Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin are doing.
I know, like the whole part 2 when they're like, oh, our station at Saturn has been... I'm like, what? Why?
Okay, well, let's just mosey and just forget that, like we forgot about Constance.
Oh, good, yeah.
I mean, Constance and Jeff Goldblum, like, they don't even talk about what happened to Constance, what happened to Connie. Like, she was a big part of Independence Day, the first one, and then, like, she's just gone. And then I did some digging, and apparently she died in a car wreck. Okay, well, we're gonna kill off characters that way? We're just like, oh, hey, he, got hit by a bus. Oh, yeah. Well, it's part of the movie. Don't you think you should cover that? I mean, they covered Dr. Oaken just fine. I mean, I do think he was over the top crazy silly, but still.
I get it, though. He was in a coma for like 20 years. I don't know how long it was, but
Dean
it was
Devlin,
a while.
Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, like they're writing it because it's a job, it's a paycheck, and at one point they loved it, and they want to do another Stargate. I love Stargate. I really do.
The first one is really cool. Yeah, like the
music again in that one too. David Arnold. I
know the concept of Stargate, like the original movie, was great.
And the whole beginning of this movie reminded me of Stargate too. I was like, Stargate? It's just you trying to practice?
Yeah.
Or are they going to connect the worlds?
The beginning to the end is just very out of order, out of pace. I didn't care about any of the characters, and when I did care about the characters, they didn't use them very well, and I was just really pissed off at the fact that they just... You could have used David Levinson for stuff. Like, he goes up into space, but that's all he did. He was just sitting there and, like, talking.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, too. Like, the banter that they had in the original, the jokes that they had, and just kind of the quick, witty stuff.
Yeah.
They did some of the same, like, jokes in this one, too.
Here's your close encounter.
Yeah, like, it's like... Well, Will Smith did that too, and then that one was like, man, I guess that's okay. Yeah. But this one, it just felt very, very forced.
They tried to force the same beats from the original movie, but they were not in the order in which they occurred in the other movie. It wasn't like Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2.
Yeah, even though that movie's like the same.
It's identical, but they upgraded stuff, and that's not what happened here. They didn't really try and upgrade the same format, which I guess you can give them credit for. But they made something completely just uneven, imbalanced, and upsetting as fans to watch. And I know a lot of people say, you know, Independence Day is just a popcorn, just go watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I know
for what it
there's
is.
a lot of people that enjoyed it because it is this action-packed, fun movie that they enjoy, and that's cool. It's just for the people that loved the original Independence Day for the characters and for what it was. This movie didn't. It just sank.
For those that sat in the crowd on an opening night, sold out, and watched it and sat there with every beat as you hit all those points to that final, you know, joint alliance by the world to take on these aliens and finally destroy them and win. Let's spread the word, you know. I mean, it was a very feel-good action, just spectacle. And if you watch it in the right state of mind, it's a good movie. It's very early Devlin Emmerich, and they let go of that a long time ago, and I don't know why we would even think that they would give us anything else. White House Down, 10,000 BC, 2012.
I mean, I did like The Day After Tomorrow, but I liked it for what it was.
That's when they started veering. Now, you know, it was after that when they got, you know, their Harold Klauser and Thomas Wander. It was not them anymore. It became a
paycheck.
Wheel it out, absolutely, the way Michael Bay does, essentially. And that's what it was. And I give it I was going to give it a 1 out of 5. I'll give it a 2 out of 5 because 1 out of 5 is like those horrible movies that, you know, just end up on Netflix that you absolutely just like, what is this? Why? Like, that's a 1, but I give Independence Day
I would give it a 2 out of 5. I mean, there was some kind of cool sequences in the movie, but it was just
heartbreaking because I love Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum and Judd Hirsch. Man, wasted. Brent Spiner, you were Dr. Oaken. You did the same thing. You did the same thing, and it was fun. It was stupid.
His kind of, for me personally, I don't know about you, but Dr. Oaken was kind of that saving grace for the movie for me because he was the same character essentially. He was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this and we're gonna get this done, and he was just like that crazy. Oh, they don't let us out much, so
yeah,
it's just
but that was very minimal, and like I said, it was over the top. It's also in the other direction of what we wanted, but either way, that's what I think.
Yeah. Thanks guys for watching our spoiler review of Independence Day Resurgence.
Yeah, absolutely. They talked about making maybe a second and a third or whatever out of this movie. Just stop. And Stargate, Dead in the Water.
Yeah, good on you, Will Smith, for not coming back.
Yeah, Suicide Squad suits you, Will. And then stay out of it. And Mae Whitman, you dodged a bullet if you were thinking about coming back.
And Jeff Goldblum, I hope that you do better, and I can't wait to see you in Thor Ragnarok.
Deserve better.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You and Bill Pullman deserve better.
Absolutely. And really, that just leaves us with one thing to say, the Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich.
In the words of my generation, up yours!